When looking at a real estate market or buying a home, there's one very important question that we all have to ask ourselves. What makes this place valuable? But in order to properly answer that, we have to know what value actually is. What makes anything valuable? I would argue that for real estate, there are three factors that can help us answer that question. We can consider how scarce or unique the area is. We can assess the utility or the variety of use cases for a home in a particular area. And last, we can simply observe how beautiful or attractive it is. In light of these three factors, it's no wonder why the subject of this video is a world-class location. So sit back and relax as we take a trip out to the Gulf Coast of Florida for an in-depth real estate tour of one of America's most beloved vacation spots, which consequentially also happens to be a phenomenal location to own a short-term rental. We are, of course, talking about Anna Maria Island. As many of you guys know, I'm a local realtor and I only cover the areas that I find truly interesting or valuable. If you guys are researching the area to buy, make sure to call or text me to work with me or ask me questions. And if you guys enjoy the video and want to push it out to more people, the best way to do that is, of course, to like and subscribe. Let's get started. In terms of scarcity, there are some obvious and not so obvious reasons why this island's inventory will always remain limited. First of all, the island is small. It's just 7 miles from end to end, and with the exception of the northern tip, it's extremely thin. The second reason is not as immediately apparent, but I'll scan across the island to see if you can tell. As you take a look at the island, imagine if this camera was panning across Miami Beach, Fort Lauderdale, St. Pete, or even Sarasota. The beaches would be lined with high-rise condos, but not on Anna Maria. Zoning regulations on the island restrict buildings from exceeding 3 stories, and as you can see, there are no special exceptions. No big condos, no commercial resorts. Aside from the Dunkin' Donuts and Publix, there aren't even any corporate chains on the island. When it comes to utility, there are again some obvious and not so obvious reasons why the real estate here is as useful as it gets. But all of them point to one single thing: demand. People absolutely love to visit here. The most obvious reason why is because, even by the Gulf of Mexico standards, it's uniquely beautiful. The water surrounding the island is world-class, and a lot of it can be attributed to the geography. Jetting out into Tampa Bay, it's far removed from the mainland, even by Barrier Island standards. And along the shorelines and underneath the water is the world-famous fine white sand. Interestingly enough, the sand has its origins from the quartz deposits all the way up in the Appalachian Mountains, dating back as far as the Paleozoic era. Through millions of years of erosion, the quartz sand has traveled down the Apalachicola River and into the Gulf of Mexico. From there, it slowly found its way onto a select few barrier islands along the west coast of Florida. And due to the more gentle waves of the Gulf, the sand is ground up much finer than the coarser and darker grains on Florida's Atlantic coast. The product is clear blue water and light sand that is cool to the touch and the perfect setting for a tropical vacation. Beyond the natural beauty of the island is the more subtle reason this location is such a commodity: the rental restrictions, or rather, the lack thereof. Unlike nearby islands of Longboat Key, Siesta Key, and Lido Key, most of Anna Maria allows daily rentals. This is a key factor for 2 reasons. 1, it makes it more accessible to a wider variety of vacationers, and 2, for the owners of these homes, it provides much higher annual returns on rental income. Shorter stays means a higher nightly rate, and more flexibility leads to a higher occupancy. And when you combine higher average daily rates and high occupancy, you end up with considerably more rental income than anywhere else nearby. Beyond the nightly rates is another important related factor: the weather. The average temperature on the island is 75 degrees year-round. It's obviously much hotter during the summer, but even in the heart of winter, there are very few days that are too cold to enjoy the beach, especially for you northerners out there. So yes, there are some months that are more popular than others, but overall there's a steady flow of vacationers here regardless of the time of year. And when they are here, they have a great time. There are 3 main beaches here, including the more private Bean Point to the north, Holmes Beach, the largest public beach on the island, in the center, and to the south, there's Coquina and Bradenton Beach. The large trees lining the coast here make this one of the most beautiful areas on the island and anywhere in the country. Surrounding the island, you also have miles of nature trails, including the beautiful Robinson Preserve, with bike lanes, wooden walking paths, and lookout decks with incredible views of the bay. Back to the north end of the island, you have the recently renovated Anna Maria City Pier, featuring incredible views of the Gulf, Tampa Bay, and even the Skyway Bridge, along with a waterfront restaurant at the end of the pier. Nearby is the Rod and Reel Pier and Restaurant, another laid-back spot to enjoy the water and even go fishing. In the same vicinity, you have Pine Avenue, one of the more popular places for people to walk around and enjoy the local food and dessert after a long day at the beach. Near Pine Ave is arguably the most famous restaurant on the island, the Sandbar, one of a few restaurants with outdoor seating right on the ocean. As you move down the island to Holmes Beach, you have the commercial center of the island featuring the Ugly Grouper and a few other popular bars and restaurants. And further south in Bradenton Beach, you find Bridge Street, another massively popular area for vacationers with a variety of restaurants with ocean views and live music. Along Bridge Street is another popular fishing pier, which was converted from the original historic bridge that used to connect the island to the mainland. Today, it serves as another fantastic spot to relax, have dinner, or try your luck at fishing. Beyond the major landmarks, there's kayaking, jet ski and boat rentals, fishing charters, parasailing, dolphin cruises, horseback riding, and just about anything else you would want to do out on the ocean. As we've been discussing the general appeal of Anna Maria Island, I can't help but wonder if you're curious about the actual homes for sale here. What kind of price tag do these homes come with? Are they overpriced? What's the trajectory of the market? We'll get into the answers of all these questions soon, but first, let's take a look at a few active listings to put it all in perspective. We'll start with what I imagine the majority of you are most curious about, the most expensive house for sale. As of this recording, it would be this property on Holmes Beach, listed for $31.7 million. Currently under construction, this home will soon boast 8 bedrooms spanning across 8,400 square feet, resting on over a half-an-acre lot, right on the Gulf, flanked on both sides by the island's signature Australian pines. In contrast, just down the road, we have this quaint little 2-bedroom villa listed in the high 400,000s. The truth is, Anna Maria Island offers a surprisingly wide range of options to choose from this $100,000 boat slip all the way up to the aforementioned $32 million mega home, and everything in between. But anytime you have an area as valuable and as intriguing as this, a natural paradox begins to emerge. As the innate value to the location becomes more universally recognized, many of the sellers and local real estate agents naturally end up over-leveraging this and asking for way too much. So as you can imagine, at any given time, there are plenty of overpriced homes on this island. And for that reason, we'll spend the rest of the video taking a deep dive into the real estate scene here to analyze and discern where the value actually lies. There are really 3 sections to the island, including Anna Maria, Holmes Beach, and Bradenton Beach. Aside from the condos and the very small pockets of homeowners associations, both Bradenton Beach and Anna Maria allow nightly vacation rentals, while Holmes Beach in the center also allows short-term rentals, but technically has a 1-week minimum. When it comes to Bradenton Beach, it benefits from a very festive atmosphere, and no matter where you are, you're never really too far from the ocean or the bay. In Holmes Beach, you're closer to the commercial center of the island, along with the main public beach where most of the people gather, and up in Anna Maria, it feels more quiet. It's secluded and residential and kind of feels like its own little beach community. The entire island is extremely desirable, but relatively speaking, Anna Maria is the most desirable section, and the prices reflect that. But when comparing Bradenton Beach and Holmes Beach, the quality distinction becomes less discernible. They both have their positives and setbacks, so it really just depends on personal preference. As far as what kind of home is best, it again really depends on what you want. When it comes to decision making, there are 3 categories of homes, or 3 ways of analyzing a home that can qualify a property as a worthwhile purchase. You can go for the highest annual returns in relation to the purchase price. You can think more long-term and go for a higher rate of appreciation, or you can simply just buy the most beautiful home for beauty's sake. Let's begin with the first category, optimizing for the highest rental income in relation to the purchase price. A current example that satisfies this category really well right now is 408 71st Street in Holmes Beach. When looking for a high-performing rental, there are a few factors that local property managers will say matters most. The first of which is the number of bedrooms and square footage. Most 4-bedroom homes on the island with over 2,000 square feet will usually exceed $2 million, so this home packs a pretty good value. It's also fully furnished and most importantly has a pool and a spacious backyard, two crucial factors for ensuring a high ADR and high occupancy. Next up, we have the long-term approach, where we try to look decades into the future to determine which properties promise a higher rate of appreciation relative to the rest of the island. For this approach, I really like 95 52nd Street. In Peninsula Florida, when you're talking about barrier islands that feature both the pure white quartz sand, along with the all-important low unit density without those massive resorts and hotels nearby, you're pretty much limited to Anna Maria Island or Casey Key. And when it comes to homes that are legitimately on the Gulf, where you can walk straight out of your back door and right onto the ocean, the entry point typically starts at $3.5 million for a very old 1-bedroom teardown. We're already seeing empty lots on the island listed for over $10 million, including 769 North Shore Drive, currently listed for $11 million. So given how much this home on 52nd Street offers, its $7.9 million price tag makes it intriguing. Unlike many of the Gulfront homes on the island, it was built relatively recently in 2003 and built up to better hurricane standards. It's also large at 3,300 square feet and rests on half an acre. It has quite a bit of interior volume with the vaulted ceilings and has some incredible views of the Gulf inside. The final selection method is the most simple and the most fun, simply selecting the nicest house that offers the best experience for the owner. For this category, I found two options at different price points that I really like. The first one is here at White Avenue. It's a lush and private property surrounded with tropical landscaping and an incredible outdoor atmosphere. It features unique coastal architecture, and at 3,300 square feet, it's extremely spacious by the island standards. Not that we're paying attention to price in this category, but at $2.9 million, it's also listed well below the average price per square foot on the island. At a higher price point, we have this waterfront beauty on 70th Street in Holmes Beach, featuring a contemporary coastal feel with 6,000 square feet of exceptional living space. This home features an incredible outdoor atmosphere with front and back porches, a spacious backyard with a lawn, a large pool, and a really nice wide dock with room for seating right on the water. On the interior, you can see an elegant and timeless design style with warm wood flooring, white walls and kitchen decor, coffered ceilings, and plenty of waterfront views. As I mentioned in the last video on Lakewood Ranch, the Florida real estate market can be very complicated, and Anna Maria contributes to that notion. The prices here have skyrocketed over the past 2 decades relative to even the rest of Florida. The average price per square foot on the island in 2009 to 2012 was roughly $325 per foot. Since summer of 2021, we've seen an average of roughly $1,050 per square feet, over a 320% increase. Many people are skeptical as to whether price increases like this are sustainable, and in certain regions of Florida, I share that skepticism. But Anna Maria, again, is a different animal. It's important to keep in mind how critical the advent of apps like Airbnb and VRBO were to this island's identity. It's become the go-to location for vacationers to experience that old Florida charm without the hustle and bustle of some of these larger beach towns in Florida. If you've been watching the listings here on the island for a while, you may have noticed far more price reductions and longer days on market since 2021, creating a perception that prices have softened since then. But this pertains mainly to asking prices. If we observe the average price per square foot on closed units, we see that since summer of 2021, prices have remained consistent, rising and falling in stride with local seasonality. For many areas in Florida, the rising inventory has become a growing concern. Some areas are seeing the highest numbers they've seen since 2010. But for Anna Maria Island, the inventory is currently equal to the pre-COVID numbers. Unless something drastic happens, the natural beauty of the island combined with the steady income produced by short-term renters should continue to make it a reliable store of value, especially for those paying primarily in cash. The days of low interest rates and undervalued properties creating an environment for investors to leverage debt and create cash flow may be over. Since the peak activity between mid-2020 and mid-2021, the island has cooled down from a units sold perspective, back to its typical average. Now, Anna Maria appears to be settling into a more reliable state of equilibrium, as a rare location that offers the perfect recipe of zoning constraints, lease restrictions, and most importantly, natural beauty, to create the archetypal oasis for Airbnb hosts and their guests. Because more than anything else, this island is a place where people are willing to spend their most valuable resource of all, their time.